In this video, I want to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of using races for your running goals. And what I really mean when I say picking races is how picking races creates a time and date pressure for your running. So we all know how popular it is to sign up for 5Ks, half marathons, marathons in running. And I just want to lay out the pros and cons of doing that. So the first very obvious reason that it's a pro is that it forces action. So signing up for a race simply gets you running. It gets you doing the training. You sign up for a race, it becomes real. You have the date in your mind. I have however many weeks out, and you build a training program in accordance to whatever race you're training for. So signing up for races, a huge pro is that it actually gets you running more and it forces you to act, okay? The other thing that I really like about training for races is that there's a social component to it, so you get to train and race with others. Okay, maybe you have a group of friends, you sign up for a race together, maybe you get your spouse to sign up for a 5K, you run it with him or her, and you kind of just can do these events with groups of people. You find out other people doing the same race. There's a social aspect to signing up for races rather than just going for a run, okay? So I really like the aspect of training and racing with other people. Another pro of using races for your running goals is that the races are memorable and fun. Are fun and memorable, okay? So a really great example of all the pros of this are my wife signed up for a 5K. She doesn't sign up for many 5Ks, but she signed up for a 5K and she got out there and she ran, okay? I signed up for the half marathon at that same event. So her and I were able to train a little bit together, and then we went to the race on the same day, and we kind of had all that energy there, and it was a fun and memorable experience. We took a bunch of pictures. She remembers it. I remember it. We can think back to when we did that race together, and that is part of the beauty that makes running such a fun sport and why races exist and why people continue to do them, because they're fun, they're memorable, it gets people running, and you can kind of do it socially with others. So there's a lot of great aspects of running races. But now what I want to do is talk about the flip side of why sometimes training for races is counterproductive and actually unhealthy for people. And I want to preface all of this by saying that this comes from the perspective of someone who's completed an Ironman. I've done a couple marathons, and I'm a physical therapist that specializes in working with runners. So I'm oftentimes I feel very responsible in helping people run pain-free. And sometimes the race pressure that the person has creates a counterproductive problem for them in their running. So I want to just take the reverse of each of these and kind of show you what is great about signing up for races in the wrong context and when dealing with injuries can be a con, and sometimes having the race on the calendar is the problem for the patient, not just that they're injured, okay? So the reverse of forces action is that it forces you to act when you should rest. So forces action when you should rest. When you should rest, okay, or slow down, okay? So an example of this is the person who signed up for a marathon. Let's say they have 18 weeks and they get hurt somewhere around the 4-week mark. It's not that bad, but it definitely puts them out for maybe like a couple weeks or so, or at least their running isn't that great for a couple weeks. And then they're basically behind for the rest of the training program and they're trying to catch up. And in an instance like that, sometimes you need to take a step back and say, hey, maybe this race actually isn't a good idea and I just need to focus on getting back to pain-free running, and I shouldn't be forcing myself to run because I have this race on the calendar. So the situation that I think of when I'm writing this is the person who signed up for a marathon. Let's say they have an 18-week training program. They get hurt somewhere around the halfway mark, maybe week 8 or 9. It's not really that serious, but they are put out for maybe like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and now they're behind, okay? Now they're behind on their training and they're trying to catch up so that they can be ready for the race in time. And what this does, the time pressure of the race creates an environment where the person is trying to rush the recovery. They're trying to put a lot of load on the tissue that maybe isn't ready for that. And they're forcing a lot to happen in a short amount of time for a tissue that can't handle it because they have this race that's on the calendar, because they have this race pressure. When really the thing that this person needs to be doing is taking it slower, ramping up more gradually, and going based on the speed that the tissue is healing and based on the how their injury is healing rather than the date that's on the calendar, okay? So that's probably the biggest con that I see, but I'm gonna kind of go through a bunch of other ones here. So another con of signing up for races when you are training and racing with others is that there's social pressure, okay? There's social pressure, which can be a good thing if you need that to stay motivated, but sometimes the social pressure can encourage you to keep training when you shouldn't, okay? Social pressure, okay? So we all know that, you know, peer pressure is a big thing, and sometimes peer pressure is a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. I would say if it goes well, it's a good thing, right? And if it goes bad, it is not a good thing, okay? If you feel like you need to keep training because you signed up for this race and that, you know, there's a lot of other people that you know signing up for this race and you don't want to say, I can't do the race, you don't want to admit that you shouldn't be doing the race, that can make races really not fun, and it can create a big problem in somebody's life when they are trying to debate, should I drop out of the race, should I not? If the injury is serious enough, then, you know, the answer is pretty obvious, but that social pressure can kind of keep people trying to train for the race when they really shouldn't be, okay? And the last thing is going to be the reverse of races are fun and memorable. Now, let me tell you, I can't argue against that races are fun and memorable, okay? There is no actual reversal to races being fun because they are fun, okay? What I will say is the reversal of this is an obsession with racing, okay? Or with a particular distance. Obsession, hopefully I spelled that right, with the race, okay? And there's two key examples that I think of when I write this, okay? The first is the person who is new to running and they're signed up for a marathon, okay? The first thing that they think of when they think of signing up for a running race is a marathon, because the marathon is the only race that's worth training, okay? So they think, right? Training for. A lot of people will choose marathons as a goal simply because of the prestige of training for a marathon or being able to complete something like that. People always ask runners, oh, you run? Like, have you done a marathon? Like, that question gets thrown around a lot, and sometimes it can make people feel that they're not a runner unless they train for a marathon. The only race that is worth bragging about is a marathon, and that's the only thing. So you get a lot of people, I see a lot of people who sign up for a marathon as the race that they're training for just because it's the marathon, okay? Not because they're actually in any amount of running shape or they actually want to run the marathon. They just have this idea that they should run a marathon because it's some, you know, bucket list item. So I think that can be misguided for a lot of people, okay? So that's one instance I see a lot of. And the other is the people training for ultra marathons. There is something about saying that you ran 100 miles that is really cool. I can't doubt it. There's something cool about saying you ran a marathon or an Ironman. That's really cool, okay? Can't doubt it, all right? But there's something about thinking like, hey, I'm going to train for this race because it's 100 miles or because it's 250 miles or some crazy number, right? It's like putting yourself in that position to train for a race like that just because that's the race. If you're not really ready for it, or if you're not taking a gradual buildup, can put you in a situation where you're simply just doing too much too soon. And that's the whole point of this whole video really, is sometimes you can sign up for a race, and because of the date and time of the race, depending on what race it is, it can force you to do too much too soon. So races are great. It creates a lot of healthy living, but there's also a dark side to races, and it particularly revolves around the date and time that you set for a particular race and trying to train up and be ready for whatever you're trying to do by a certain amount of time, because sometimes the body takes longer and you need a little bit more time. Sometimes injuries happen and you need to change the plan, but the date of the race usually doesn't change for you. So maybe you need to change your running to fit what's going on with your life. So if you found this video helpful, give me a like. If you have a question or a comment, drop it in the comments. If you found this video helpful, send it off to someone else you think would find this valuable. Thank you.